to the GAB Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. Today, we will be speaking with Nancy Regas, author of The Art of Being a School Counselor, winner of the 2021 New York City Big Book Award in Education, a 2021 New York City Big Book Distinguished Favorite in Audiobook Nonfiction, and a 2022 Independent Press Award Distinguished Favorite in Education. Nancy's debut book is the result of her 22 years as a school counselor in the public school system. Nancy drew inspiration from her 2 adult daughters and 2 granddaughters. She joins us from San Diego, where she resides with her husband of 47 years. Congratulations, Nancy, and welcome to the GAB.
Thank you, Gabby. It's a privilege to be with you today.
Oh, it's so nice. Nancy, I loved your book. I am actually a mom of 2 high schoolers, and I loved the chapter that you wrote about high school. And I actually shared some of that information with my daughter, who's a senior in high school. So it was really, really fantastic. And I thank you. So Nancy, at what point in your professional career did you discover that being a school counselor was your calling? Because clearly it was.
It really was a journey for me. I started out in nursing and navigated to a perinatal educator for 16, 17 years. I went into being a marriage and family therapist. And I just kind of meandered. And it was when I was in postgraduate school getting my credential, professors said a career is an expression of who you are. And it finally really resonated with me that everything I had done had brought me to this point of public education. And that's when I knew that this is where I needed to be. And it just felt like I was home.
Well, one of your former high school students, actually, Nancy, wrote the foreword of the book, which I really enjoyed reading. So obviously you made an impact on many students' lives. As a school counselor for 22 years, what did you most enjoy about the work?
Absolutely. The one-on-one intimate relationship with students. Every student is so unique, and I always felt it was such a privilege to have them in my office and to be led into their world and to discover their personal highs and lows. And I always wanted to make my office a safe zone. I used to have a student who would write letters, and he'd come into my office and he'd bring the letter just so he knew everything he wanted to talk about. So every student is so unique. I just ran into a student that I haven't seen in, about 18 years. I wouldn't have recognized him because he has a shaved head and a beard. And he recognized me right away and then told me a story of something that had occurred that I didn't remember. And he said, I just had to thank you and tell you that you handled it so well. And that just touched me deeply, that I was able to impact lives on a very personal level. So that for me, it made every day new, different, and exciting.
Oh my gosh, so rewarding. So Nancy, tell us about the picture on the front cover of your book and how it relates to being a successful school counselor, because I like the way you discuss that in the book.
Oh, thank you. That is a painting that my youngest daughter, Melissa, who's an artist, did for us. And she always knew that I loved Jackson Pollock. And so she painted that and, brought it home for Christmas one time. And I always used to name it, well, it's not a Pollock, it's a Regas.
I love that.
It's above our couch in our living room. And I would find myself staring at the lines and finding out where they meandered and what connected to what. And so when I was writing the book, I asked her, can I use this painting? Because it's the perfect metaphor for counseling because you don't know. And if you think you know, then you're making assumptions and you're cheating yourself as the counselor, but you're cheating your students. And so you have to be open and reflective to what you're going to be receiving. And so that painting is the perfect thing that you go into your office to start a day with no preconceived notions. Yes, you have an inbox and you think you're going to get all that done, but then things shoot at you from different directions. And you have to be able to navigate and follow that thread to where it's going to go. And that's how you will be most effective with your students. And that's how your students know that you truly care about them individually. They're not a number to you.
Definitely. And it's also important, I find, just working with my kids' guidance counselor, that you're really aware of the different challenges that are happening in the world right now, because it's a lot different applying to colleges today, isn't it, than it was, let's say 15 years ago. So given all the challenges that kids and teachers and parents have faced in the past few years specifically, why is it so important to have solid counseling programs in place?
Oh, absolutely. And the world was turned upside down. And what we knew and expected and relied upon just slipped through our fingers. And we were forced to recreate, redesign, rethink, and get rid of that word normal. Because if it's not normal, oh my goodness, it must be abnormal. And nobody likes to be associated with that. So I always looked at the word as being what was typical, um, and what was something that maybe we could rely on. And counselors are the hub of the wheel, that we're the only ones that have to make administrators, teachers, parents, and students happy. And often the four of them are not on the same page. So we have to figure out how to navigate and join those groups together so they impact each other in a very positive way. Very sadly, over half the states in this country do not mandate school counselors for grades K through 12.
I know I heard you say that in a previous interview that you had, that including California.
Including California, which
That is so sad.
it boggles my mind. And what that means is, and I experienced it myself being with a principal that was going to cut budgets and decided that slashing half the counseling office was the way to go. If you're working with a district or a school where counseling for them is not a priority, you're an easy target to disappear. And I think administrators need to know how to use their counselors effectively. They're not just extra bodies. Teachers need to know how to work collaboratively with counselors. Some of my best experiences were having teachers in my office and us focusing on a particular student that wasn't quite making it, that was struggling. So how could we create a relationship that uplifted this student? For parents, it's figuring out, how do I navigate? Because school is school, yes, but it's different than it was when I was in school. So how do I understand so I can support my student?
Yes.
And so all of those things have to navigate, and that's why counseling is so vital.
Well, I can't even imagine that not being available as my kids grow up. I have so many conversations with my children's guidance counselor that
That's great.
Without them, I don't know how we would have made it through so many important decisions. So
Mhm.
Nancy, in your chapter about COVID, you had some really fantastic suggestions, because I feel like right now our education system is in crisis. We have a teaching shortage, and this has become even more apparent since COVID. You suggest that districts hire retired teachers and counselors, which I think is a fantastic idea, to tutor and host support groups. Do you think that'll ever become a reality?
Um, I hate to be negative, because I tend to try to look at the glass half full, but
Yes,
but I don't think so.
I know. I have to agree with you.
I don't think so. I think that we still in this country, I say the two things that are vital that to me are apolitical are healthcare and education. We as a country should want a literate, healthy population. And that
1000%.
says to me, we need to invest everything we can in getting the best education and the best healthcare. I used to say, and this is, and it really, when I became a regional college rep after I retired from the school district, and I was traveling around to different high schools, and I got to see some private schools. And I really saw the difference in the world. And I used to say, when I was working in public school, if I had paper towel, soap, toilet paper, and toilet seat covers in the women's bathroom all in the same day, I was so excited.
I can see
And,
that.
and that sounds really trite, but it's true.
No, it is true.
And
It is true.
and educators, I brought my own Kleenex. Teachers buy their own supplies. We don't put the effort, including our pocketbooks, into education. And
It is mind-boggling that we're not doing that. So let's talk about more positive things. So because you are and were a successful school counselor, what are the top 5 skills and or traits that you think a successful school counselor should have?
well, I think for me, fundamentally, the ultimate key is passion.
Mm,
Theory is great, is the bedrock upon which we build a profession, and it's throughout the country with ASCA, the American School Counseling Association. It's risen the level of school counseling, but it's passion that puts the soul into counseling. And if you're not doing it with passion, you're not really completing the circle. So I think you have to know why you're a counselor, what you expect from yourself, how you're going to deliver that to your students, and how you can receive each student individually. And that's a skill you have to develop in terms of really wiping the slate clean about saying, okay, all ninth graders are this, all seniors are this, all boys are this, all girls are this, all this race is that. You have to wipe that away and put yourself into that modality of this is a unique individual at this moment in time in their life. How do I see and help them navigate their past, and sometimes getting through the stumbling blocks that are holding them back? How do I help them manage their present? And that's the highs and the lows. And then how do I help them project their future so they can actually visualize a path that they can see themselves on? A counselor also has to know how to truly listen. Listen without having the solution all the time, but listen so your student can tell you a story, the story of them.
wow, I love that. I love that.
there's only one of them. And sometimes parents will tell you the story of their student. And
It's a much different story coming from the student, isn't it?
it's much different.
Yes.
And so sometimes you have to navigate and help parents and students juggle that. I say in the book that an incident where I had a young man who was really, really struggling. Just, he was really on the verge of not graduating from high school. And his mother was extremely upset, and she called me very irate every time she saw a progress report. And she said, I'm going to pull him. I'm pulling him from the school, and he'll get a GED. And so he and I had a good relationship, and I was working with him. I ran the night school program as well. And I asked her to do something that was extremely difficult, and I told her it was. He said, I'm asking you to trust me, and I'm asking you to back off, not ask your son anything about school. Because when you do, he gets so angry and defensive that he shuts down here.
It triggered him. It triggered him.
It
Yeah.
triggered, and they just butt heads. And she courageously said yes.
It's not easy.
It's not
I've
easy.
had to do that many times. It is not easy.
And so we worked together, and I met with him weekly. We kind of went through progress reports, we did through, and it was such a thrill for me to call her on the phone and say, I'm telling you, your son is graduating.
Wow. That must have been a thrilling moment for both of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so another skill for counselors is you can't dismiss parents. You can't dismiss teachers. You can't dismiss administrators. You have to be cognizant of all pieces of the puzzle.
It takes a village. It really does.
It does.
Yes.
And where it all fits together.
Yes.
And when you do that, that means that and I think counselors need an open door policy. I was always at work early. I always stayed late. Students knew that they could come and see me, and they also knew I would be honest. And the same with parents or teachers. If when they arrived, it wasn't a good time, I would tell them, this is not a good time because I'm in the middle of or whatever, I'm going to a meeting, but this is when it is a good time.
Right.
So you have to give them that courtesy that your time and their time is not the same. Given the message, I care about you. I want to invest in you. I don't want to cheat you by giving you a short amount of time. So you come back here, the time is yours. And
It really makes a difference. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Well, as I said earlier, Nancy, I found the book as a parent to be extremely useful. And I hope it's okay with you. I'm actually going to pass this on to a new guidance counselor that just started in my children's high school. And he literally just got his degree in counseling, and he is a teacher in the high school, but I guess he made this transition to being counselor. So I'm going to pass this book along to him because I think that he will get so much out of it. And I think it would be beneficial to graduate school programs and just at the beginning. I loved the section in the book when you talked about the 7 characteristics that outline what school's really about. I loved that. So which one do you think is the most important characteristic and why?
Oh, goodness. Wow. You're putting me on the spot with that.
Sorry. I can guess which one, but I want to see if we agree on it.
Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive. I see them, as a package. I fundamentally, and that was kind of my trademark. Parents knew and would always ask me, tell me the 7. I need the 7.
Okay, so I'm onto something. So that was popular. Okay.
It was very popular. And they're so interrelated.
Can I tell you what I think to me the most important one is?
Yes,
Maybe,
please.
maybe that'll be a springboard for you. I
Okay.
think, and this goes across, this is across life. I think organization.
Uh,
Am I,
yeah, I think that's vital. I think what I was going to say, in terms of where we are in the world,
Mhm.
nationally, I was going to say accountability,
Okay, I like that too. Yes,
because
yes.
I think there's a lot of pass the buck. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot, as a result of COVID and what we've come through, and we're still going through. It's not going to go away, and we have to create a new way of living.
The new normal.
But I think people have gotten, many, not certainly not all, um, many have gotten very comfortable with being complacent and, well, it's, it's COVID. It's,
Mhm.
you know, it's the shortage, and we don't have this and we can't do this, as opposed to what can we do? Kinds of things can we create. See, and I know Zoom is never going to take place of that personal one-on-one, but allowed to do something. When I went to school, when my daughters went to school, it was not possible. And I think that accountability factor is crucial. We have to be able to say, this is maybe not ideal or the best, but it's really good. And it's something we can utilize to our benefit. I mean, the fact for seen in 49 years, that to me was such a privilege.
Yes.
I mean, that was a gift. And so I think accountability, I think we have to teach that in our kids. We have to teach them that I'm responsible. It's my hierarchy of what I talk about from elementary school to middle school to high school. In elementary school, they hold your hand. In middle school, they let go of your hand, but they stand right next to you and kind of prod you forward. In high school, they stand in the door and wait for you to come to their door. And in college, they're in some building and you've got to find the right building. That as we climb and we grow, we gain those skills to bring life together and help us interact with one another on a more open and inclusive manner and in a respectful manner. My students knew that respect was my favorite word. I had it plastered in my office. It was huge.
And I know you had a lot of little sayings and
Yeah.
inspirations all over your office. I love that. So, Nancy, for anyone looking to go into the school counseling profession, what is the most important piece of advice you have for them?
I think in going in, you go in because you want to make a difference, not because it's an easy job or and all the stereotypes of what I've heard throughout the years. And my husband was an educator for 39 years. Oh, I want summers off. I want vacations. I want to get out early, whatever it is. You have to go in and understand why you're choosing this, because it's not an easy road and it requires great commitment, great passion. And so if you know that you want to be able to see individuals and not lump them all together and help them navigate their way, then I think counseling is a powerhouse. Like I say in the book, I loved school. I don't remember anything, any relationship I had with my school counselor.
Hmm. Well, that's fantastic advice. So, Nancy, you have so much knowledge to share. What's next for you? Are you working on any more projects?
Well, I really would like, my dream is to see this book you mentioned, which I thank you, in graduate schools as an onboarding tool for new counselors. I would love to be able to, and if it's across the country, I would do Zoom meetings with counseling staffs or, with principals and their administrative staffs. I would love to be able to dialogue with people to really foster this and get people thinking on a new level, get them out of the box, out of just theory, um, out of the way things have always been done, and begin to figure out, as you use the phrase, the new normal. And how do we really make society better for the next generation?
Well, I really do hope that you are able to do that. So, finally, Nancy, where can our listeners purchase your book and your audiobook?
It is on Amazon. It is on audible.com. It's in Kindle as well. It's at Barnes and Noble. So any of those places, it is there and available. And I just would love to hear from people. I just so appreciate if you get the book. If you write a review, that helps other readers know that it's more than just rules for being a school counselor. There's a lot more about life in there.
Absolutely. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today. Next podcast, we will be chatting with Julie Skolnick, author of Paris Blue. Until then, keep reading. This is Gabby Olzak of the GAB Talks.